Hello everyone, welcome to Tatami Room episode 6. This is your host Martin. I'm going to start off today's episode with a Stoic quote. I think I want to start doing a Stoic quote at the beginning of my episodes now. So this is one I found particularly interesting. So here goes. A person's worth is measured by the worth of what he values. This is a quote by Marcus Aurelius, and I believe he says this in the Meditations. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's it's a very interesting quote, and it's a handful to think about. So, yeah, new little segment. Anyway, a little summary for today's episode. We'll have a daily life section as usual. I'll talk about teaching itself, about my students and coworkers, and about how my kanji and studying is coming along. This week, there won't be a current events section. I got pretty busy over this week and just didn't have the time to create one for y'all. But I'll be back stronger next week, and I'll have a really interesting episode then. I'll be going to Kumamoto Prefecture next week, so that episode will also be packed. And then finally, I'll close the episode with the fan favorite, or my favorite, the word and the stat of the week. Let's get started. Alright everyone, welcome back to the daily life section. This was my first week actually going to schools and teaching, so it was really exciting and a lot happened, so let's get into it. First of all, I want to talk about teaching itself, just going to the schools and what's happening inside the classroom. So last week, the episode 5 was titled Jiko Shokai, which is like self-introduction, and while I was teaching this week, it was kind of, like I alluded to in last week's episode, a Jiko Shokai, or another self-introduction most of the time, but kind of gamified for the kids. So I went to 5 elementary schools, 5 different elementary schools this past week, various locations around Nishinoomote, ranging from, schools that had like 50 to like 75 kids to schools that had like 15 to 20 kids in total, not per grade, not per class, but in total. One of the schools I gave a presentation to, I did a presentation for the entire school, and yeah, there were about like 20 kids, I would say. So it was kind of interesting, and in some of my classes there's only like 3 or 4. But yeah, the way that my day would work is I would show up in the office at the city hall, then attend the morning meeting, and just kind of attend the morning meeting, listen to what people were saying, study a little bit of kanji, and then I'd be off to school depending on what period they needed me. I'd show up, do a couple self-introductions and classes, 2 or so. Then lunchtime, I opted to eat lunch with the kids, so they'd get more familiar with me. But so I was in there. I was in the classroom, sometimes eating with like 3rd or 4th graders versus 2nd, 5th, and 6th. A lot of the times, these schools, they combined like 5th and 6th grade, 3rd and 4th grade, because there weren't enough students for individual classes like 5th grade and 6th grade. Then during recess, I would play soccer, or whatever sport the kids wanted to play, and then I'd usually have one more presentation or class to kind of finish out the day before going back to the city hall and getting a little bit more kanji time in before I headed home. But yeah, during class, while I was presenting, basically the first class, these were all first classes, it was all me. I had 45 minutes of me giving a presentation, and it was this same PowerPoint over and over again, like the same PowerPoint 3 to 4 times a day. And so, I mean, by the end, I got really good at it. So I know this, I know my About Me PowerPoint, like the back of my hand now, all the animations and everything, which is cool, but, it got a little repetitive at some point. I'm going to different schools this week, so I'll be running the same PowerPoint back again. So hopefully I can keep my sanity while I'm doing that. So even though the PowerPoint was a bit repetitive for me, the kids seemed to love it. Like it was a big success. I was a little worried that they might get bored or whatever, but I think using a lot of images was very helpful. Images, transitions. Shout out to my high school teacher, Mr. Leslie, for teaching me the correct way to make a good and informative PowerPoint. But yeah, so I was kind of going off. I think a lot of the kids enjoyed it. I had like a 10-15 minute like self introduction, and the rest was like a quiz section, like a quiz that was about me, like how old am I? Had a couple jokes in there. I throw up like four answers, like what's my name, and then like one of them would be obviously false, like. I think for that one I said like Naruto Uzumaki and popped a picture of Naruto up on the top right corner. So they had a kick out of that. I had another section in the quiz where I put up a bunch of pictures of latte art that I'd made at my previous job. Shout out to everyone I did latte art competitions with, because gave me a bunch of material for these presentations. And so I put those latte art pictures up, and I was like, "Hey, what is this? Is this a swan, etc.? Is this a flower?" That kind of vibe. There were a couple difficult classes. Yeah, there like particularly this one where it was first and second graders, and they were like more hyper than usual. They got up out of their seats without me asking them, and sometimes they wouldn't follow along completely. And usually, like I don't know the kids in Japan, or the kids that I've taught so far, even if I don't know, maybe they're not enjoying it, or they're not. One of them is like oh, okay, whatever, but they're still paying attention and they're observing. I think the difficult class I was talking about particularly was the fact that it was such young kids, and it was apparently the first time they had a foreigner as a as a teacher, as a sensei. So they were kind of excited, which it was good, because I think they'll be excited for the next classes. But I kind of had to just like keep going with the presentation, even though some of the kids were not necessarily paying 100% attention. So overall, I think I'm having fun though. I'm curious, so I'm still doing my intro PowerPoint stuff next week, but the week after that I'll be getting into some actual lessons, and I'm excited to see how those go, because obviously if I'm doing a fun little quiz about like America and a bunch of things that the kids might not have necessarily seen before and find very interesting, I think that's why a lot of them appeared to like my intro presentation. But when we get into the actual nitty gritty of like, okay, this is a verb, this is an adjective, like, how's that gonna go? Also kind of bribed the kids at the end. I gave them a little like American star sticker. I thought it would be, they'd be like, oh, this is lame or whatever, but they're actually very happy about the American star, so I was kind of glad. Shout out to my mom for giving me those before the trip, because it's definitely been a nice kind of find for me. I wanted to also talk about not just I've alluded to the students briefly. I wanted to talk about my students and my coworkers, not just the lesson itself. So all of my coworkers are very nice, and some of them are very curious. What I found really interesting personally is that each school seems to have a different kind of culture. And you can kind of see it even in like what the kids play during recess. Like some of them play tag, some of them play soccer. But that difference of culture also exists within the faculty as well. Some of them I feel are a bit more relaxed. Some of them are a little bit more uptight. So it's interesting to kind of navigate that. This also means that I've kind of found that I like going to certain schools, where I'm excited to go to certain schools again. Just because I don't know, I felt more at home there. But yeah, although there's so many schools, I probably can't even name the ones that I necessarily was like, oh my gosh, this was the best time. Or one, I didn't have a particular, like I didn't have like a catastrophe. I didn't have a saiyaku at any of the schools, but there's definitely just ones that, you know, I felt more at ease. So yeah, most of the teachers, like my coworkers, are in their 30s. There's a couple people my age I've found, but yeah, it's still a little tough to socialize. I've gotten some invites to kind of go and hang out or whatever, but a lot of it is like, hey, let's go drinking, that kind of stuff. And honestly, I mean, that's kind of how it is in the US as well. I don't know why I thought it would be different. Like you meet someone, like, hey, let's go out for drinks, or that kind of vibe. I don't know, maybe in the US, like maybe coffee is more common, but yeah, so I'll see. There's definitely a lot of like I mentioned, everyone's super nice so far, and yeah, I'm just like I'm 22, and it's a little bit hard to get to know someone when there's both like a cultural barrier, a bit of a language barrier, and then there's the age kind of experience barrier as well. But I'm sure I'll manage. I've started kind of figuring out the social chess that is being played here. The principals can be a little intimidating. At least some of them are. The other teachers I found like socialize a lot more easily. Even the vice principals, they're like, "Hey, what's up?" Like how they're really curious, and the principals kind of tend to themselves, keep their distance. They seem nice. Like one of them gave me this like little energy drink thing before I left, but I don't know if it's because there's like a difference in roles and positions that they feel awkward talking to me. But most of the principals I haven't cozied up to as much as like some random teachers or vice principals. Turning now to the kids are a lot of fun. They're all, you know, super happy that I'm there, and they're very interested in like, you know, where I'm from and what what I'm kind of about. And playing soccer with them is a blast, but it is extremely tiring. This week has definitely worn on me. I think I need to be a little bit more ornery about my hours, in the sense that when I don't mind eating with the kids, and I don't mind playing soccer with them, but having to play like having to turn up in the lunchtime classico at a random Japanese elementary school every day is it's a little tiring. Especially, I think I like strained or sprained, I don't know, hurt my Achilles a little bit, and so running or jumping are not ideal for me right now. And I just get home and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. What did I do? I only did 3 presentations, and I realized, well, yeah, but I didn't basically have a break whatsoever today. So yeah, very tired by the end of the day. Finally, I wanted to talk about learning Japanese. So I mentioned an episode or two ago that I signed up for the N3 Japanese proficiency test. That one is like a casual speaker of Japanese. You can read easy texts, understand what's going on in daily conversations for the most part. So that is going to be pretty challenging, and I've had to push myself. You know, I come into the office every morning and I just stay on my kanji hustle. Every day I'm trying to learn like around five kanji, I would say. I find it kind of pretty rewarding. Like when I'm able to, you know, see a character and say like, oh, this one has like two different kunyomi and one onyomi, and this is the meaning. Remember an example. So it's really cool like that. I think I find it rewarding because it's such a challenge, right? When if you see one kanji, it's not enough to just be like, oh, this is how it sounds, because there's four different ways it could sound. There's different meanings it could have. So if being able to hit all of that, it's a good feeling. So currently, I'm almost, I would say, getting close to 100 kanji memorized. These are N3 kanji. I need 350 for them. I do think that I need to go back and review like my N4 and N5 kanji. I know what they mean for the most part, but some of their like sayings and phrasings I need to kind of do some review on. I do think I'm doing a decent job, and if I keep at the pace that I'm going at right now, I should have a 350 down before the test. I've always had sort of I guess you could say, like a good ear for language. I don't know, maybe that just comes from learning Hungarian and then English when I was relatively young. Yeah, I don't know. I remember in high school Spanish class, for example, it didn't really challenge me particularly. It was a lot of fun and I learned a lot. No disrespect to my Spanish teacher, but I know others struggled with that material quite a bit. In any case, the progress can be slow at times. Like there's sometimes I come back and I'm like, okay, what's this one phrasing, or how do I say this kanji? And I come back and I'm like, I've seen this 3 times before, and I just can't remember. But you got to trust the process. And also, I was saying that learning kanji is rewarding. It just because it's kind of like cool that you can remember something and kind of, remember all aspects of it, not just one thing. But it's also rewarding because I'm finally starting to like understand what I'm seeing around me, in terms of like when I go to the grocery store or when I'm like out and about in town and there's a bunch of random kanji about. I'm like, okay, I can pick out 1 or 2 there, because I remember when I got to the island, it was like maybe I saw 1 and I was like, oh, okay, I don't know what that is, but I could kind of tell. And now in most words, I'm able to pick out at least 1 kanji, a couple kanji. So it's we're getting somewhere. I don't know where exactly, but yeah. In terms of practice, I practice speaking every day for the most part, just going to grocery stores or just, even speaking to the teachers. The presentations I've had to do for the kids, they've all been, well, I speak in English, but I basically translate every single sentence I say into Japanese immediately after, because that's where the English level is at. That otherwise they wouldn't really understand what I was saying. I also try to practice the kanji, start of work, end of work kind of, and then the grammar is reserved for the weekends. I think after I crank out this episode, I'm gonna take a look at this Japanese course that gets sent out by the Jet people. So yeah, Japanese is coming along. Is difficult, but I find it a lot of fun. Yeah, ganbarimashou. All right. So that was the daily life section. Stretched a little long, but there's no current events section for you. So let's wrap things up with the closing section, and we'll be back after a short break. Hello, everyone. Thank you for making it to the end of the show. The closing segment of the show. Again, really appreciate everyone who's been listening so far. If you have any feedback for me, please, any suggestions, shoot me a DM, an email. Most of y'all listening know my contact information, so please do not hesitate. I'd really love the opportunity to get better and keep making a better podcast for both me and you. So, yeah, but with that being said, let's cut to the word or words of the week. I find myself doing pairs of words or related words more often than not. But this week's words are vice principal and principal. So vice principal being Kyoto sensei, where Kyoto has the kanji for teaching and head plus sensei, which means teacher, and kocho sensei being principal, and the kocho kanji are education plus long slash superior. The kanji for education and the kanji for long superior, that kind of vibe. So kocho plus sensei is principal. Yeah, I thought that would be kind of a a fun piece of information for y'all listening. Those are words that I've had to utter like quite a few times this week, I would say. So that's the inspiration behind this week's words of the week. Kyoto sensei, which is vice principal, and kocho sensei, which is principal. The stat of the week is 150 yen. 150 yen is typically the price of a baked good at this bakery that I've been going to called Sumomo Bakery. And let me tell you, the food over there is delicious. Coming from Hungary or Europe in general, like bakeries play a more prominent role, I would say, than do bakeries in the U.S. So the bakery is more ubiquitous in Europe, and I found that I've missed having like a bakery at like at Fred Meyer, for example. A lot of the quote unquote baked goods in America are super highly processed sugary foods that I'm just like, no thanks, I'm good. And yeah, the Tesco with the bakery in Budapest is definitely missed. But I found this, I think I've mentioned this bakery before, called Sumomo Bakery. I guess I'm giving them a free shout out right now. Sumomo Bakery in this kind of supermarket, I guess you could call it, that grocery store called Sunseed. And I've been going there a lot. I usually go on the weekends. I'll hit up the gym in the morning and then buy a bunch of pastries right after and use it for like a lunch slash breakfast combination. So they're delicious and only 150 yen a pop, which I'm like, honestly, I don't know how. Maybe I think it's kind of medium price. Like they're not cheap, especially if I'm buying multiple, but I just still think in terms of dollar terms, 150 yen, it's about $1, and I'm just thinking, man, these are pastries that in the U.S. is going for $5-6, you know. So it's I'm always very happy when I'm able to just stroll down after the gym to the bakery, and yeah, it's definitely one of the highlights of my day. But anyway, that's your stat of the week, 150 yen. Now it is time to really wrap things up here. I mentioned in the introduction that next week I'll be going to Kumamoto. My good friend Nate will be in town, so we'll have plenty of adventures to talk about. The podcast might actually be delayed because I'll be in Kumamoto, so but I'll keep you all updated about that. It might be coming out on on Monday as opposed to the usual Sunday, so keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, I hope everyone's had a great week thus far, and I hope you'll have a great week next week. This is your host, Martin, signing off. Peace and love.